Hey everybody,
Hello.
welcome back. We are going to do something really exciting today. No battling. We most likely will not have time for any of that. But we had the opportunity to get all four of the 2016 Pokemon trading card game World Championship decks. World Champ decks are super cool because they let you see some of the best cards from their respective eras put together in some of the most successful ways by some of the most legendary players. So every year since 2004, that there have been a World Championships, Pokemon has chosen four decks. They're always sufficiently different that have all performed well, and they've printed special non-official tournament legal versions of those decks. So we have all four from 2016 here, and we're super excited. This will be the third year that we have a complete set of, along with 2019 and 2022, and then we have a few other World Champ decks from other years. So I've already got our storage case here set up and nicely labeled today. So we are going to start with Black Dragon.
This one. Okay.
Yes, Black Dragon by Shunto Sadahiro. So let's set these others off to the side, and I think that will be the best one to put into the sapphire sleeves. We only buy a few different colors of Dragon Shield, so that if any of them break, it's relatively easy to find a replacement.
Yeah.
Now, we are by no means experts on these eras or all the matchups or things, so some of these cards we will be reading for the very first time ever.
Well, okay.
Within reason. It seems that they try to, if the exact same deck wins, masters and seniors and things, they try to pick relatively different decks. I love these booklets that come, so we'll obviously only have to look at one of those.
There we go.
There you go, yeah. We'll start looking at them here in a second. Alright, so first let's go through this, because we'll only have to go through this once, because then it's identical for all of them. And the pin. Yes, so the 2016 World Championships must have been in San Francisco. Ooh. The light.
Yeah, the light's a little off, isn't it?
I know we don't have the best lighting and stuff, but it's pretty cool. It's a Pikachu riding like a trolley, a rail car. So we will end up with four of those. Alright, let's look at this here real quick. Battles by the Bay. Countries participating.
Oh, that's fun.
These flags. And it's worth noting, now obviously this is multiple brackets and things, but I didn't realize the relatively small number of players, like compared to tournaments, some of the bigger tournaments that can be in the thousands. Worlds is usually like 150 to 230 players. Yeah, we'll set that aside for all four of them until we figure out exactly what they have and how many you can redeem and things.
Right.
So here's the junior finals bracket. This is most likely this must be TCG to start with. So Shunto Sadahiro, that's this deck, was the world champion in juniors. Jesper Eriksen is one of the other decks. Bebe, yeah. So the seniors world champion, and Shintaro Ito is the masters world champion. We know his name. We actually have another world champ deck by him, the Ultra Beast one with Blacephalon from 2019. He was the masters runner-up that year, falling to Henry Brand's Perfection in the finals. I mean, just looking over here, I can see some names that I recognize: Gustavo Wada, Ross Cawthon. So that's really cool. They've got descriptions. They've got the deck lists and descriptions of them, sort of. And let's see here. It talks about what country the players are from, and it has an interesting fact about them. It says here, this player, Yuto Ozawa, one of Yuto's regular opponents is his mother. They play together several times per week. Seniors, it goes through them each individually. I want to say, we'll get there when we get there. Shintaro Ito, Cody Walensky. I want to say that 2016 was the first year that they did competitions for. Oh, Wolfie Glick. We know that. I know that name. This is video game, and then Pokken. Yeah, I think this is the very first Pokken tournament world championship, and then I think 2022 was the last, or maybe 2021 was the last. No, I think it was 2022. Oops.
Dropping the lids.
Pokken was like the Pokemon fighting game.
Oh, okay,
like,
okay.
Kind of like Mortal Kombat or something like that. That's not my favorite genre. So, all right, yeah, that's super cool. Oh, there's a better picture. That's what the pin looks like. The pin is that picture right there. All right, cool. So we will end up with several of those. And you are working on that.
Yeah.
So these are mostly trainers. I imagine a lot of the trainers will be the same.
Special energy. They're not organized by like type.
Okay.
So
yep, so we can do that. Float Stone is obviously very, very good. You attach it to a Pokemon and it gives them no retreat cost. So that's actually really important for some things when there's multiple effects in play that affect retreat cost. In theory, they can be additive. Like you could have something that's like a +2 and a -1 all at the same time. But Float Stone, when it says has no retreat cost, that's a ×0. So all the other effects now no longer matter. ×0. I know that there is a general rule that when multiple effects affect the bench size, you use the smallest effect, but again, in this case, I don't think there's anything that can override this as long as the tool is still active. All right. Xerosic is not a supporter that I'm very familiar with. Choose a Pokemon tool or special energy card attached to a Pokemon in play, yours or your opponent's, and discard it. Okay, so that's kind of similar to, I think Field Blower is legal here. We'll see if it's here. Field Blower is 2 in any combination of stadiums and tool cards. I'm guessing Crushing Hammer or Enhanced Hammer maybe wasn't legal at this time. Kyle will be able to tell us. This is similar to Flannery now. Flannery is a special energy and a stadium, but it's not optional. Field Blower is not legal here. Okay, so there we go. Field Blower obviously doesn't affect special energy. But this is or, so it's one Pokemon tool or a special energy card. So that's interesting. Enhanced Hammer was legal. I like Enhanced Hammer a lot. That's a fun card. Alright, N, the boy, the man, the king. King N. So N is obviously a very good card. It's really, it's as we learned recently with celebrations, N is really a reprint of Rocket's admin. And the key thing about that is it gives you the opportunity. Okay. I'll get to that point in a second, Kyle. Thank you. I know you always have excellent insight. It gives you the opportunity potentially to come back because each player shuffles his or her hand into his or her deck, then draws a card for each of their remaining prize cards. So, if your opponent has fewer prize cards than you, they draw fewer cards. Potentially, you have the opportunity to start coming back while they have very little to work with. So Rocket's Admin was the first card to have essentially the same effect. I'm trying to think if there was any difference between the two. I want to say you could draw up to that many cards, maybe with Rocket's Admin. Maybe it was optional. And I feel like your opponent drew first. I could be wrong about that. I could definitely be wrong about that. I'm wrong about a lot. But, and then the most recent version of this type of effect is Iono right now, which she is different because you shuffle your hand and put it on the bottom of your deck instead of shuffling it in. So, except in a few very specific situations, you're not going to redraw any of those same cards. Okay, so Kyle was just pointing out that Xerosic, that's funny. Zero means dry in like medical terminology. Like xerostomia is dry mouth. So I don't know. Could be used with Versus Seeker. Okay, yeah. So Rocket's admin. Sorry, wait. One point at a time. Xerosic can be used with Versus Seeker, so you can get it back and then use it again the next turn. Obviously, it takes up your supporter for the turn, but that's very relevant. And we do not have anything like Versus Seeker right now. There was Eldegoss V for a while that had that is like a come into play ability. Of course, then you've had Eldegoss in play. And we have Palpad, which is shuffle 2 back into the deck, but Versus Seeker lets you put one straight
right
into your hand. So
yeah.
then you can use it.
Right.
And then Kyle was making the point that the difference with Rocket's admin is important because you could choose not to deck yourself out, whereas N forces you to draw as many cards as you have prizes.
Right. Okay.
So if you only have 3 cards in your deck and you have 3 prizes remaining, and let's say you have no cards in hand, then you would draw all 3 with N and lose.
Yeah, lose on your next turn.
Okay, this is a fun one. Read that one.
Okay. Fighting Fury Belt. This is a Pokemon tool. The basic Pokemon this card is attached to gets plus 40 HP, and its attacks do 10 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So that's pretty cool.
And it's only basics, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I know you just read it.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's actually a card that shows up in some of the GLC lists, and it will probably make sense once we rework. There was at least one of them where I was like, this doesn't seem to make sense because it seems like most of the attackers are
not basics.
Evolution Pokemon. Yeah. But for sure, if you're primarily attacking with basics,
right,
that's huge.
Oh,
if you get it at the right time, right?
Right.
So in GLC, it's always a question of are you going to get what you want at the right time?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. Whew, we got a lot. Okay, this Shaman EX is a huge card from this era.
Okay, it has an ability.
It's literally called Setup, and it's a setup card.
Yeah. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you may draw until you have 6 cards in your hand. Nice.
And then its attack
Sky Return does 30 damage. Return this Pokemon and all cards attached to it to your hand. Holy cow!
Yeah, so
That's
you could play
fantastic.
Shaman EX
A
multiple
bunch of
times
times, yeah.
in one game by shuffling it back into the deck or into your
Put it
hand.
put it into your hand, yeah.
Returning it into your hand. All right, let's look at some of these. Oh, are those actually different? No, they're the same. Okay, good. Whew. I was getting real confused. Do you mind reading Max Elixir?
I was looking at this when I was leaving them. This one's interesting. Look at the top 6 cards of your deck and attach a basic energy card you find there to a basic Pokemon on your bench. Shuffle the other cards back into your deck.
Okay. So, energy acceleration.
Yes.
It's good.
Yeah, which is super nice.
But only basic energy.
But only basic energy and only to basic Pokemon.
Okay. I think this deck only has basic Pokemon as attackers.
Right,
as
just
attacker.
say.
I don't think
That's
that Garbodor is intended to be an attacker.
Right.
And we will look at its ability here in just a moment. Those are 2 different dual-sided stadiums.
Oh, fun. Those are always fun.
They have lots of text, so we will deal with that in just a moment. So we've got Lysander, which is Boss's Orders. It's Gust. And Professor Sycamore, which is now Professor's Research. So both of these style of cards, rather than continue to print them named after individual characters,
right.
They're now named the thing that they are, and then they just have the art.
Have the art of the specific character
and they have started listing like who it is,
like Professor,
but that's not considered part of the card's name.
Right.
So if you wanted to, you could have 4 boss with all 4 different arts, or 4 research with the different arts, but you can't have 4 oak and 4 sycamore and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I hate Max Elixir Vile card. Okay, Double Dragon Energy is super cool.
It is.
Read that.
Lots of fun. This card can only be attached to Dragon Pokemon. This card provides every type of energy, but only provides 2 energy at a time, only while this card is attached to a Dragon Pokemon. If it's attached to anything else, discard this card. So it provides 2 energy at a time on Dragon Pokemon, which is really fun.
Yeah, all the time. Like, you don't have to be behind on prizes or anything like that.
It just is. It's double colorless, but dragon.
I know these are not going to be in, like, the most logical order ever.
Perfect order, certainly.
What else do we have in here? Any more trainers? Oh, just energy. Right, yeah. Basic energy. Is it all darkness energy?
Yes.
And then the double dragon? Yes. I guess that makes sense. Okay, so I want to finish going through the trainers. Once we go through the trainers once, we largely won't have to go through, like a lot of them will be duplicates, some of the core ones. Obviously, we all know and love Ultra Ball. Discard 2 to search your deck for any Pokemon. That's obviously helpful because you can search for any Pokemon without limitation, but then there's also the added benefit of potentially fueling discard synergy. Let's see here. Super Rod was just reprinted, and that's a cool card. It's put 3 in any combination of any Pokemon or basic energy cards from your discard pile back into your deck. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely seeing some play right now. AZ is a new one to me. Put one of your Pokemon into your hand, discard all cards attached to that Pokemon. So you would think that would... So it's kind of like Scoop Up Net as a supporter.
Right.
You would think that would be most useful for something like a Shaman, where you want to put it down, use its ability, and then not have it there as a liability. Or we'll have to look. I see when you play here, so this would be an effect that you might want to repeat. Right. Obviously, discarding the energy attached to an attacker is potentially problematic. So we'll have to see what else is here. Pokemon Ranger is a super cool card. One that I kind of wish they would reprint. Remove all effects of attacks from each player and his or her Pokemon. So let's say your opponent played a card, used an attack last turn, like disconnect. Your opponent cannot use item cards the next turn. Well, if you play Pokemon Ranger, that effect goes away.
Right, and you can play items.
Correct. There's currently, in current standard, like you can always remove effects from Pokemon, either by evolving them or moving them to the bench. But, or I guess devolving them, technically. But there's no way in standard right now to remove an effect on a player.
Okay.
So that's really tricky. And there's actually, so there's a Noivern EX right now that's kind of similar to Whimsicott V-Star, where its attack prevents you from playing. I think Noivern EX's attack prevents you from playing stadiums and special energy.
Okay.
So like they'll path you, they'll play Path to the Peak, and then use that attack over and over again, and hope that that is enough to, like, you can't bump it.
Right.
So unless you have an item like Lost Vacuum or Worker or Flannery, some supporter that discards a stadium, that you can't bump it with another stadium like we often do.
Right.
So, Pokemon Ranger is super cool. You want to go ahead and read Garbotoxin? That's the main reason that Garbodor is in there.
So it says, if this Pokemon has a Pokemon tool card attached to it, each Pokemon in play, in each player's hand, and in each player's discard pile has no abilities except for Garbotoxin.
And that's all of them.
That's all of them.
Yeah, so it's a more broad ability, and it affects your own Pokemon as well.
Right.
But you can use it from the bench.
Right.
Whereas, like, the Bide Barricade Wobbuffet that I use in the GLC deck that we were messing around with, that one can only be used from the active spot, but it doesn't shut off abilities of psychic Pokemon. Right. So essentially, if you have your deck built correctly, it won't shut off any of your own abilities. Yeah. But it has to be in the active spot. So there's that trade-off. Like, he doesn't have to be in the active spot, but it's going to shut off your own Pokemon's abilities as well. And since it specifies in the hand as well, then there's not even remotely a question of like, well, when I play this Pokemon down, does it have an ability?
No.
What was I just had a thought the other day about. Oh no, this is the thing. If there's an effect that happens when a Pokemon comes into play, the owner of that Pokemon gets to choose which effect takes place first, but not for this. It would be something like for Gapejaw Bog, like when does the damage happen? Does it happen before or after the ability activates? That's important right now. Because there's a Tinglu EX that prevents all abilities of Pokemon with damage counters on them, or your opponent's Pokemon with damage counters on them.
Okay, interesting.
So, that's like a question. But this, like, there is no question, because the Shaman EX in your hand doesn't even have an ability. Right. Because it says it doesn't have an ability.
Yeah.
Was the propagation execute legal during this time? Because I think of that card as being the reason that this also specifies in the discard pile.
Right.
There certainly are Pokemon across the history of the game who have abilities in the discard pile that then can be used. One of the more recent ones is the Gengar that is used.
If it's in your discard pile,
you can put it onto the bench and put 3 damage counters on it. There is a Giratina with an ability called Dimension Door that is very, very similar to that, where you put it onto the. I think you only have to put like 1 damage counter on it or something. Like it's. Yeah. Of course, Giratina is a basic and Gengar is a stage 2, so that's That's interesting. But then the propagation execute, you could put it back into your hand and then just keep discarding it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we have not gone over
Yeah,
these
so
yet.
I'm
They
going
have a
with the
bunch of text.
stadiums.
Trainer's mail is pretty simple. It's kind of like Pokegear 3.0. Although Pokegear is look at the top 7, but you can only pull one supporter. Trainer's mail is look at the top 4, but you can pull any trainer card. So that's a really useful card. Was not legal. The original Garbotoxin. I see. Execute and Ho-Oh-EX. Okay, there we
Oh,
go. I
okay.
knew Kyle would know. I knew Kyle would know. Alright, so Trainer's Mail. Alright, we've done all of that, so we're down to the stadiums and the attackers.
Yep.
So, let's look at this. Reverse Valley. So, these are cool, and actually they kind of throw off my, like I'm used to putting a stadium this way, not this way.
Right.
You know, I'm
Yeah,
used to putting it
we put it sideways so that we can
both
read
read
it.
it. But for these stadiums, you actually have to put them because the way that you orient them makes a difference.
Right.
So it says, choose which way this card faces before you play it. The attacks of this player's Darkness Pokemon do 10 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. I imagine, I'm going to guess that's the way that this is supposed to be played when you're playing this deck. Because this way says any damage done to this player's metal Pokemon by an opponent's attack is reduced by 10. Okay, yeah, so obviously there's no metal Pokemon here.
Right.
So Reverse Valley in this deck is intended to boost the damage of your darkness types. Alright, cool. Parallel City. Any damage done by attacks from this player's grass, fire, or water Pokemon is reduced by 20. Okay, so this one is beneficial and this one is harmful. This player can't have more than 3 benched Pokemon.
Ooh.
When this card comes into play, this player discards bench Pokemon until he or she has 3 bench Pokemon. Okay, so I'm assuming when you play this one in this deck, you're using it to limit your opponent's bench
Right.
down to 3. Because you're taking the hit of having reduced damage from grass, fire. That doesn't seem like a very balanced effect because this applies to every deck and this only applies to some decks. Hence, some people are playing it. Right. So, yeah, this deck is definitely not hurt by the grass, fire, or water reduction. So you would use it to limit your opponent's bench.
Right.
Okay, so what does Darkrai EX do, honey?
Okay. So he's got 2 attacks. The first one is Dark Pulse. It does 20 plus. This attack does 20 more damage for each darkness energy attached to all of your Pokemon.
Wow.
Okay. That can be a lot, potentially.
And obviously that's why you've got Max Elixir there to try to accelerate energy.
And then...
And these would count too.
Right. Oh.
Okay, yeah, I mean that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I've done that. We've done that a little bit. So the closest thing to that right now is Collapse to the Stadium, which reduces the bench of both players down to 4. And I've definitely seen people use it, and I've used it myself to bump a Pokemon that is a bench liability. Like you play Lumineon, you get its effect. You don't want it sitting there with only 170 HP, giving up 2 prizes if it gets knocked out.
Right.
Oh, we have to remember to put the energy like in this area.
Yeah. Sorry, we'll try to do that for the next one.
But okay, so that makes sense. You can also use it on yourself to get rid of bench liabilities if you need to.
Yeah. Okay, and then its other attack is Dark Head, 80 plus. If your opponent's active Pokemon is asleep, this attack does 80 more damage.
Dookie, hey, thanks for joining us. Yeah, we're looking at these 2016 World Championship decks. is asleep. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me look at
Yeah, I was gonna say
Hoopa.
sleep.
Hoopa EX. We actually just recently watched the Hoopa movie for the first time
That's
in a
interesting.
long time. It was a fun one.
Yeah.
It was a fun one. Okay, so Kyle just said that you discard Hoopas from the bench with Parallel City, which means this is used for its ability and not for its attack, which also makes sense because it's an attack. Its attack takes 3 psychic energy, and there are no
And there's
psychic
no
energy
psychic
in this
energy
deck,
in the deck.
and it's not
And
a
it's not
dragon
a
type,
dragon
so it
type.
cannot benefit from double dragon energy. Okay, so let's focus on this ability then. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you may search your deck for up to 3 Pokemon EX, except for Hoopa EX, reveal them, and put them into your hand. Then shuffle your deck. So they intentionally limited it so you can't do. Hey, yeah, thanks, Dookie. It was super cool to see all 4 of them being sold, actually by the same seller.
Yeah.
I snatched those up because we're going to NAIC next weekend, and I'm definitely going to be looking I'm going to look and see what World Champ decks they have, and I didn't want to accidentally buy the same ones there that I could have just gotten online. So, because you don't usually see these things like in your local card store. Okay, so you can't do what you can do right now with like Miraidon EX, where you use Miraidon to grab a Pokemon and another Miraidon, and then you use the second Miraidon to grab 2 more Pokemon.
Right.
So you can't do that.
Right.
But you can, and in this deck, you've got your Shaman EX that you can grab to set up. You've got your attackers here. So that makes a ton of sense. You're putting this one down. It also makes sense with Hoopa is like the teleportation Pokemon, so it's beaming in Pokemon EX from your deck into your hand, and then you can put them down. Okay, that's super cool. So that would be another one that makes sense that why you would want to like pick that up with AZ. Yeah. All right. So what does Eveltal there do?
Eveltal. Okay. So
not an EX.
Not an EX. Yes. That has 2 different attacks. Oblivion Wing does 30 damage. Attach a Darkness Energy card from your discard pile to one of your benched Pokemon. So that's nice. It takes 1 Darkness Energy to do that. So then, like, you get to attach 2 energy, hopefully, possibly 3 in 1 turn. Mm-hmm. So like that's really good to set up for which one was it? Is there one that does more damage for?
Yeah.
That one.
Darkrai EX does more damage for each Darkness Energy attached.
Yeah, so it's a really good way to set up for that. And then its second attack is Darkness Blade. It does 100 damage. Flip a coin. If tails, this Pokemon can't attack during your next turn.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And you're potentially you have an attacker there who is only giving up a single prize.
Right.
And if you're hitting for weakness into some of these decks, then that'll be helpful. Okay, so I think we only have Giratina EX left to go over.
I think so.
So let's look at that, and then we'll move on to the next deck.
Which won't take as long.
Because we'll just be like, yes, this trainer that we've seen before and this trainer that we've seen before. Okay, Giratina EX. Ability, Renegade Pulse. Prevent all effects of attacks, including damage, done to this Pokemon by your opponent's Mega Evolution Pokemon.
Okay.
That's really cool. Obviously, that is not in play when Garbotoxin is active.
Right.
And that actually might be a reason why you might use Xerosic on your own Garbodor.
Yeah.
Discard the Float Stone so you get your ability back. Or kind of like what people can do now with Path, where they'll play Path, remove Path, use their own abilities, and then play Path again. Yeah. I imagine that there's times where you attach a Float Stone to shut off your opponent's abilities, and then come back to your next turn. You get rid of the Float Stone.
Right.
You use your own abilities, and then you attach the Float Stone again to prevent your opponent from doing that. But That's a really good ability, especially because we know that the main attacker in the Masters winning deck is Mega Audino. So we'll get there. Okay, Chaos Wheel, and this can be potentially used with the Double Dragon Energy. I am not sure if Giratina EX is actually intended to be an attacker in this deck. The attack's pretty cool. I'm going to read it here in just a second. But we already said that this Double Dragon Energy will boost Darkrai EX's damage because it counts as 2 Darkness Energy when it's attached. But it takes a Grass and a Psychic, so you have to have a Double Dragon Energy on Giratina EX if you want to attack with it. So Chaos Wheel does 100 base damage. Your opponent can't play any Pokemon Tool, Special Energy, or Stadium cards from his or her hand during his or her next turn. Ooh, so that's similar to the... That's actually a even more restrictive version of like the Noivern EX attack that is out now. So that's kind of cool. And one thing cool to note about this Giratina EX Honey is that it's weak against Fairy. Right? So Fairy's not in the game anymore. Some people would like it to come back. We'll see what happens. I'm skeptical myself, but Dragon types are weak against Fairy. Fairies were introduced in the trading card game quite shortly after the introduction of Dragon types. Now Dragon types have no weakness. Originally they were weak. I think originally they were weak against Dragon, and then they were weak against Fairy. So this is weak against Fairy. Alright, so let's go ahead and gather this one up and move on to the second, which will be Ninja Blitz, which is a Greninja break deck, so this is definitely one that I'm interested in looking in. So there is a retro, older format tournament based on NAIC 2017 that is happening on Thursday of next week before NAIC this year actually gets rolling. And just for fun, to have something to do, and because it's cool to like meet people, and I played in the Sumlot tournament last year and didn't go winless, which is totally my expectation. Yeah, so let's go ahead and start on that one. I did manage to win 2 games, thanks in large part to the coaching and direction of our friend Kyle Whimsicast. So my expectation this year is fully to go winless, but picking, some cards picking a deck from that older era and playing with the players who are interested in playing those older tournaments and things, it'll be fun. Now, obviously, I'd be terrified if any of the people who actually did well at NAIC 2017 are there.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, hello.
But hey, it'll be fun. So we're already planning to be in town, so that'll be good. Oh, great! Already a new trainer. So. We know what Ace Trainer does, though.
Right.
It's somewhat similar to Roxanne, except you can use it at any point if you're behind on prizes. So you can use it when you're at 6 and your opponent's at 5. So we'll talk about that here in a second.
We have enough to do one more deck in Sapphire.
I would do blue for this one.
Okay.
I think blue matches better, and we just have so much more blue than we have anything else.
Right, that's true.
Okay, so let me get these. Okay, so here's another Pokemon Ranger. That we know what that does. Rough Seas. Oh, yes. Here. Thank you, dear. Rough Seas is a stadium card. There's 3 copies. Once during each player's turn, that player may heal 30 damage from each of his or her water Pokemon and lightning Pokemon. So each. I know that some of the decks in this time period, actually several of them, it seems like, are spread style, where they want to put damage on a lot of Pokemon, so being able to heal off that damage makes a lot of sense. Alright, we'll get here, but we've got...
One more.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we've got 3 Froakie. 3 Froakie? And 4 Frogadier? That doesn't make sense. There must be another Froakie
I'd say there's a
somewhere.
Greninja here. Like I said, they weren't in order last time, so...
Greninja Break.
2 Greninja...
Okay. We'll figure it out.
I don't see it.
Are there really only 3? Is there a way to cheat them into play that I'm not thinking of? I don't know. We'll figure it out.
We're going to find out.
We will. Okay, so water energy are obviously like the lowest priority, and they need to go right about there anyway.
Yeah.
So, break are really cool cards. We'll get to that in a minute, but they are essentially a stage 4. Or 3.
3.
A stage 3.
As
They are a
wait,
4th
wait.
stage. Yes. Are there really only 3 here? Am I just crazy?
Yeah, there's 3.
It's weird. Okay. Alright, so we've got N. Classic N, the king. Ah, 3 Froakie was to increase the chances of starting Talonflame. And the Talonflame is super cool. We haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah, it's easy.
Okay. Fisherman. Put 4 basic energy cards from your discard pile into your hand. This is a very classic supporter that has been reprinted many times. Okay, Pokemon Ranger. Remove effects of attacks. Also super cool. Let's get this. I'll figure out exactly where the bounds of the camera are. Okay, Rough Seas. Yep, we did Rough Seas. Yep. Okay, let's see. Bursting Balloon, a tool. If this card is attached to one of your Pokemon, discard it at the end of your opponent's turn. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is your active Pokemon and is damaged by an opponent's attack, even if that Pokemon is knocked out, put 6 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. Okay, so you get to attach it for 1 turn and you basically dare them attack my Pokemon.
Right.
If you dare. Okay. Ooh, Battle Compressor. Alright, we'll get there in a second.
Sorry.
Ace Trainer. Okay, so this is the one I was saying is kind of similar to Roxanne. Now, Roxanne only activates when you get down to 3 prizes or less, when your opponent has 3 prizes or less. Each player, but this is anytime you have more prize cards left than your opponent. Each player shuffles his or her hand into his or her deck. That's the same as Roxanne. You draw 6, your opponent draws 3. So Roxanne is you draw 6, your opponent draws 2. So, there we go. And, okay, so what Kyle's saying makes sense. You have 3 Froakies so that there's only 3 basic Pokemon in the deck. Because you would rather, this deck would rather take a mulligan if it doesn't have Talonflame in the opening hand than to start Froakie. It would rather take a mulligan than start Froakie.
Right.
Like it wants to start Talonflame. So we'll get there. And there's actually, I think, a new card that's either out with Paldea Evolved or it's coming that has a very similar ability to this Talonflame. So I'll go ahead and read it. Ability Gale Wings. If this Pokemon, now it's important to note, Talonflame is a stage 2. But the ability Gale Wings, if this Pokemon is in your hand when you are setting up to play, you may put it face down as your active Pokemon. And then it has an attack that only costs 1 colorless energy, does 40 base damage. Search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them into your hand. Shuffle your deck afterwards. So you really, it sounds like, You really want to start with a Talonflame, which means the other three are immediately dead cards.
Right, they're discard fodder.
Luxray from Crown Zenith has a similar ability. Okay, alright. I knew it was something. We did not open much Crown Zenith. We literally opened 4 packs. Those 4 packs were good to us, but we only opened 4 packs. Alright. So you really want to start a Talonflame, and then the other 3 are dead cards. Because you can only put it face down as your active Pokemon. You can't put it onto your bench.
Right.
And obviously drawing it at any other point in the game is not going to be helpful because there's no Fletchinder or Fletchling.
Right.
Alright, so that's cool. That'll go over there with the Pokemon. Alright, let's see what we've got here. We've got Professor Sycamore, Classic, discard your hand, draw 7. Everybody loves discard, draw 7. Although it is worth noting right now that some decks are playing Colress in place of Sycamore or Research because you don't have to discard your hand. Now you have to Lost Zone 2 of the 5 cards that you look at, but you obviously get to choose. So, okay. Battle Compressor is a super cool card. That the first time I ever read it, I thought it was really stupid. And now that I understand the game a little bit better, I would not by any means say that I'm very good. But now that I understand the game a little bit better, I can see how powerful it is. So it's search your deck for up to 3 cards and discard them. Shuffle your deck afterwards. So imagine if you had this with the V Unions right now. Would be a very clear example. But also Regigigas would benefit from this. Gardevoir would benefit from this. Like anything where you're trying to get stuff into the discard pile. Wings of Unity, which is a new single prize deck from Paldea Evolved that we have not obviously opened yet. It's all about this. Their attacks do 20 damage for each Pokemon in your discard pile with the United Wings attack. So you just really do insane things.
Where do you want?
Let's see. Energy. Glare is worst, like right there. So just leave the energy there. Okay, we've got 2 Super Rod. We went over that already. We have 4 Versa Seeker, which makes perfect sense. We've got 2 Level Ball, which is still a very relevant card. It's actually kind of funny now when you see yeah. So I've fluctuated within there, so I definitely understand that. It's actually really funny with Level Ball when you see like an Ivysaur that has 100 HP and you're like, oh darn, I can't search for it with Level Ball. Startling Megaphone, discard all Pokemon tool cards attached to each of your opponent's Pokemon. So you can see how that's really important for Garbotoxin. You want to get rid of that. 4 Dive Ball, which let you search for any water Pokemon, including Pokemon Break, who obviously are not basics or anything like that. I don't know if are there any items that is there anything that specifically lets you search for Break Pokemon that stage? I'm not sure. I'm sure Kyle would know. And then Splash Energy, which can only be attached to water Pokemon. It only provides water energy while it's attached to a water Pokemon. If the water Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, put that Pokemon into your hand. Discard all cards attached to it. Okay, so question. If this is attached to a Greninja Break, does the Greninja Break and all the cards underneath come into my hand? Are they all the Pokemon? Or does just the Greninja Break go into my hand and the other 3 underneath go into the disc? What goes into what, if any of them, go into the discard pile? Because I used to think when Scoop Up Net first came out, because the original Scoop Up, I think, says discard any cards underneath or something like
Right.
that. All cards underneath go with it, the whole line. Okay, all right, that makes sense. And that's how Scoop Up Net is
Right.
now. But the original Scoop Up says put the highest stage back in your hand and the others get discarded or something,
yeah.
something along those lines. So Splash Energy lets you recover the entire line.
Nice.
And then you can start evolving again next turn. Okay, so that seems pretty straightforward. You're willing to take a bunch of mulligans, so you basically have 7 basics,
Right.
which is a low number. So I think once you're at 10 basics, Bursting Balloon is for Night March. So Night March is also a deck that would use like Battle Compressor. So it's like Wings of Unity, where it does, I think, 10 damage for each Pokemon in the discard pile with the Night March attack. It's a single prize deck. That was never, it didn't like win worlds or anything, but it was always relevant at its time. They reprinted it, sort of. The most recent similar one before Wings of Unity to Night March was Mad Party. This attack does 10 damage for each of your Pokemon in the discard pile with the Mad Party attack. So same kind of thing. Bursting Balloon is for that. Okay, that makes sense. You essentially have 7 basics.
Right, which seems very low. But
it is very low. I mean, at 10 basics, you have, I used to know this number. I think it's a 15% chance to mulligan. It was the best deck. Oh, man. Well, maybe I should have just played Night March then. Because I do love me some single prize decks. Oh, well. I definitely don't have the cards on hand. I'm trying to think of which ones. Did it have a bunch of different types of attackers? Kind of like, because that's one of the things with Wings of Unity right now, is it has several different types, so it can like play to weakness. It's got like a darkness and a lightning and stuff like that. Whereas Mad Party, I think, was pretty much psychic and water, maybe? That sounds right. I could be wrong about that. Alright. So yes, you definitely are going to take a lot of mulligans with this deck, just by design, by the odds. If you didn't take a bunch of mulligans, you got extremely lucky.
Right.
Okay, so
Alright.
let's move on, because we have to. Well, technically, it's not like I have to work tomorrow.
That's true.
We do not know when the baby is going to get up.
Yeah, the baby has not been sleeping great.
Night March attacked with lightning, Joltik, which invalidated Mega Rayquaza, and sometimes hit with Psychic, since it had Mew EX to copy.
Okay. Cool. Here, you want to hand me the next one?
Yeah. What is the next one? You're doing Magical Symphony? Okay, so this is the Masters World Championship deck.
Okay. Yes. As much as we wish we could just stay up for hours and hours.
We have to be responsible, especially since the baby has gotten up 2 of the last 3 nights. 2 of the last 3 nights in the middle of the night? Yeah.
Yes.
So.
But in the middle of the night, we literally mean like 2:30 in the morning.
Alright, now
and
this
not
one,
gone back to sleep.
This one should be purple.
Here it is.
Nice. Okay, yeah. Dimension Valley is a super cool card that I never knew about until... I mean, I'm sure I saw it at some point because we did have a copy, but I looked at it again here recently with GLC. So, Dimension Valley is the stadium that reduces the attack cost of all Psychic Pokemon by 1 colorless. which, again, that wouldn't do anything for Hoopa EX, whose attack cost is all Psychic.
All Psychic, yeah.
But if you have Colorless in your attack cost, like this Mega Audino EX, which is not Psychic type, so ignore that part. But if you have any Colorless, it takes one of those away, which is really cool. Really cool. Kyle graciously offered to let me borrow a deck, but we're going out of town sooner than NAIC actually starts, and
yes.
I would just feel terrible if anything happened to somebody else's cards. So
right. Well, and I mean,
so I'm gonna fumble around. I'm gonna fumble around with something that I have here.
Yeah. But not with them to be left
with
outside.
What I can find. Yeah. Well, and I mean, I wouldn't expect anybody to be targeting us, but it certainly has happened that people have had cards stolen from them at events. Yes. Alright, so, starting off, we've got Professor Sycamore, 4 copies. Shocker. I actually am finding it a little interesting now looking at the list. I'm very curious to see what does well in Puerto Rico this weekend, although realizing that there's not going to be like thousands and thousands of players there. But people trying to find that balance between number of copies of Research versus numbers of copies of Iono. You know, is it 4 of each? Is it 4 and 2? Is it, you know... What is it? Alright, so what do we have here? Parallel City, is this the bench one? Yeah, this is the bench one. Okay. That makes sense. So that probably is being used, like what Kyle said, to bump your own Pokemon off the bench who are bench liabilities after they've done their job.
Sorry, I'm mixing Pokemon in.
Alright, Hex Maniac is super cool. Hexmaniac is a supporter. Until the end of your opponent's next turn, each Pokemon in play, in each player's hand, and in each player's discard pile has no abilities. So you give up your supporter for the turn in order to shut off all abilities for all Pokemon everywhere until the end of your opponent's turn. So obviously you can play this essentially at the end of your turn. So you do all of your own stuff. You play Hexmaniac. Your opponent has to go through a whole turn with no abilities, and then it comes back to you and you have abilities again.
Right. Yes, as we discussed the other day.
The end of our GLC practice. Okay.
Again, I'm sorry.
Lysander, yes, double prize penalty after the game ends. So this one has 2 copies of it.
Shut up.
I love you, Andy. So we've got Boss, we've got N, we've got, let's see, what else do we have here that's a supporter? Okay, this one has 2 AZ. Put one of your Pokemon into your hand, discard all attached cards. Alright. Floatstone. Love Floatstone. Escape Rope. I don't remember where we picked up our first copy of Floatstone, but when we played what was essentially our like legacy tournament where we built all of our decks and we played through with any card we owned.
Just like whatever card we wanted.
How many decks? 32, something like that?
34, a lot. Sorry, I've got
No, you're fine. You're fine. I'm just taking
there.
these basics. I'm gonna find the glare and put them in it right there. Basic metal energy. Double colorless. Ooh, it's the cool like pink ones. I know that people have strong opinions about what are the best to double colorless, but these are kind of cool.
Here's a pile here.
Alright, let's see here. We've got Startling Megaphone. Okay. We know what that does. Pokemon Center Lady. Heal 60 damage and remove all special conditions from one of your Pokemon. Nice. Mega Turbo. Attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your Mega Evolution Pokemon. Surprised there's
Pull
only
that right
one
back
copy. We'll see about that. Audino Spirit Link. Okay, I hate these Spirit Link cards because we have so many of them and we do not have the corresponding EX or the corresponding Mega.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. I know that there are people on there are people who do Mega or who do Legacy. Is it just in Basil who runs that? I think. At least he's the one I feel like I see posting about it the most. Yeah, we did. I guess we would call it, maybe the best term would be eternal or something. Basically, we just took all the cards that we had.
Yeah,
and
like literally all the cards that we
mixed
owned,
them
and we
together.
built decks.
We did something similar to what we do with the Classic Cards Coliseum, where we had deck cores and then we had cores of trainer cards, and we moved the trainers between the different decks. And we had certain favorites, so Floatstone was definitely in there. Okay, that's
Switch.
Eternal. Okay, so Legacy and Eternal are different. All right, I'm not crazy. I just used the wrong term. Yes, Scramble Switch was my favorite one ever. Didn't we draft trainers at the beginning? Like, we drafted trainers between the two of us, and that became like our pool of trainers each, and then we could kind of sideboard in cards as we wanted to. Legacy was a PTCGO exclusive format. Yes. I am missing online more and more every day. I definitely enjoyed the grind up the ladder on live to get the rewards and things. On online I enjoyed the grind. And in live I do not enjoy it at all, and I'm just glad that if I do just enough to get the daily quests, I'll eventually get all like 50 tiers or whatever, but I have zero desire to sit there and play a bunch and try to rank all the way up to, I don't know, Arceus tier or whatever it is. But the Spirit Link cards are specific to an EX Mega EX pair, so they're only useful with those other cards. And normally, so this is the cool thing about Megas, and the only other deck with Megas that we have is Mega Groudon. But the cool thing about Megas is when you evolve a Mega, your turn ends, normally. Unless you have the Spirit Link card attached to the corresponding EX when you evolve it. So your turn does not end if the Pokemon this card is attached to becomes Mega Audino EX.
Okay, very cool.
Audino? Oh, I gotta look that. Oh man, I gotta look it up now. Audino, Audino, audio something sounding like audio would make sense because it's like a music Pokemon, hence Magical Symphony.
Yeah.
Alright, I'm not gonna worry about it right now. I've always kind of said Audino, but I could definitely be wrong about that. Alright, so there's the Spirit Links. They can go over there. Okay, we've got 4 trainers now. Makes sense. Xerosic is probably going to be targeted against opponent's tools for Garbotoxin in this case, not your own. 4 versus Seeker, that's not surprising. That seems to be pretty typical there. 4 Ultra Ball, also not surprising. And a Super Rod. I have really enjoyed breaking out my old Super Rods, knowing that I can use Audino. Audino? Audino? Oh man. Ooh, I'm gonna have to practice that one. Yep. That one looks like it's kind of sticking out. So.
Oh, sorry. I have like these like not cuts, but like hangnails. and so occasionally it will get stuck.
I love
Sorry.
it. No, you're good. You're good. I just happened to notice.
I just need to switch
As
fingers
we
probably.
were sorting through our older decks earlier today, I definitely noticed some of them were struggling. Okay, so
yeah.
we've gone through all of these. We've gone through the Spirit Link. We
Yes.
obviously know what double colorless does.
Right.
It provides double colorless.
Colorless energy.
So let's look at some of these Pokemon. We know
Yes.
what Hoopa EX does
Yep.
now. So it looks for EXs,
Yep,
and that should include the Megas,
Mhm.
just like how Vs, V-Stars, and V-Maxes are all V. The
Yeah.
Megas are also Pokemon EXs. So Magearna is new. So what does that do?
Okay. Magearna has an ability called Mystic Heart. Prevent all effects of your opponent's attacks except damage done to each of your Pokemon that has any metal energy attached to it. Existing effects are not removed.
So prevent all effects except damage.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and then it does have an attack, but it's not like amazing. And it does 120 damage.
Okay.
During your next turn, this Pokemon's Soul Blaster attacks damage is 60, so it reduces its own damage by half if you use it.
But you can see, and I saw that I think the deck box actually pointed this out. So like 110. No, not that one. The
actual
the whole
packaging.
The whole package. So like 110 is a big number here because you can 110 knock out a Shaman and take 2 prizes.
Yeah.
So 120, you can see how that would be pretty important, pretty useful.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you just float stone it, you can retreat and then attack again the next turn, or something. Or you could even retreat, use AZ, pick up the Pokemon, put it back, and now you get to attack again.
Yeah.
Because there's obviously metal energy here, so it's intended to be. Or wait, they had to have metal energy to benefit from Mystic Heart. You just read that. Okay.
Yes.
They have to have metal energy attached to benefit from Mystic Heart. Okay, cool. Alright, let's look at this Absol, which must only be here for its ability because there are no darkness energy. It's real brain work, the big brain stuff right there. Cursed Eyes. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you may move 3 damage counters from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another of his or her Pokemon.
That's fun.
And I think Magical Symphony does some damage to the bench, so we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
So that would make sense. What does Cobalion there do?
Cobalion. I was trying to figure out in my head how it was pronounced.
I guess it could be Cobalion, like Cobalt. Ooh, man, I have to look up these two.
Anyway, it has 2 attacks. One is Quick Guard. Prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from basic Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. It can't use Quick Guard next turn. And then Revenge Blast, 30+. This attack does 30 more damage for each prize card your opponent has taken.
Okay. Yeah. Alright, cool. So, how about Audino?
Which one?
Well, the EX, the Mega is the main attacker, but we can look at the... Oh, do the Wave! That's like old school Wigglytuff.
This attack does 10 more damage for each of your bench Pokemon, so 60+.
60 base. So 110 potentially.
Yeah, do 110.
Alright, that's a big number.
Alright, and then Magical Symphony does 110. If you played a supporter card from your hand during this turn, this attack does 50 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon.
Okay.
Nice.
And there's probably some evolving basics from some of these other Stage 2 decks that only have 50 HP. So you could potentially, I think the box even said this, you could potentially like one-shot a Shaman and then also get a knockout on the bench and take 3 prizes in one turn. So that's super cool. It'll be fun to test these out. Yeah. And these will definitely be, one of the fun things about World Champ decks in general is once you have some friends or family or kids who have a good grasp of the game, you can sit them down with these cards, and then they can't say, "You just gave me a bad deck."
Yeah.
No.
Hand me that.
Yeah.
Like, no.
No. We
You
know that
just
this
have
is
to
a good
practice
deck.
more.
Just learn, and see how the interactions work together, and try to understand some of the strategy, which is what we're trying to do right now. Like, obviously, we're talking through it and trying to getting a very general sense of what the strategy of the deck is. But there's obviously you could spend hours and hours learning not only the deck itself but all the matchups, which the best players in the world have definitely done that.
Sorry, that was kind of obnoxious.
Audino's spread is very good against bench Night March attackers, kind of against Greninja. If Rough Seas is in play, it starts to go downhill. Okay, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. By the way, Kyle, do you need like these pins or anything? Like, I would very, very gladly send you any of this stuff, like the pin or the booklet or anything, if you need it, if you want it.
What color am I putting these in?
Let's do blue for these two, just because blue is what we have the most of. So, you know that multiple decks are going to end up in blue.
Yeah. Alright, do you want me to start doing...
Go ahead and start with the... Of course, no problem. Start with the trainers, and I will look at these Pokemon.
Okay. I say a lot of that is going to be trainers, because most of this is Pokemon.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Well, here's double colorless, so we know what those do. There's those.
That's not going to work.
Alright, so let's look at this. Alright, already I see a break, a yawn. Oh, we didn't talk about how breaks evolve. Oops.
Oh, we didn't?
No, we didn't talk about that. So, I know Kyle knows, but for anybody else who might be watching this, or might watch it later, let's just go over that real quick here. So, you've got like Yanma here, and then Yanmega. Oh, I like this Yanmega. Oh, I'm so glad that it's in this deck. This is a cool Yanmega. I like it a lot. If you have exactly 4 cards in your hand, ignore all energy and the attack cost of this Pokemon, of each of this Pokemon's attacks. Okay, but, so you've got Yanma, and then it evolves into Yanmega. Now, when you evolve it into Yanmega Break, you put the break part over top like this. And it replaces the stage, it replaces the name, it replaces the HP, and it adds whatever is on the break card. It's usually only, I think all breaks only have one thing. Like, it's either an ability or an attack. I think that's correct. Kyle can correct me if I'm wrong. But it keeps everything else that is a part of the card. So it keeps this ability, it keeps this attack, it keeps the weakness and the resistance. So that's really unique, and there's not really been anything similar to that. Now, unlike level X's, which also kept the text of the card underneath, level X's were considered to have the same name as the card that they evolved from.
Oh.
So you could only have 4 total. So you either had to have 2-2 or 3-1.
Right.
Breaks are level X cards, but much less cool. Yeah, so, but the name thing is different. So breaks are considered to have a different name. So you can see that this deck, I think, has 4, probably has 4 Yanmega and then 3 Yanmega break. And breaks are rule box cards that don't give additional prizes. Yeah, do level X's give multiple prizes? I'm not sure off the top of my head. They do not give additional prizes. Yeah, the rule box just says that it keeps all of this stuff down here, basically. Right. Okay, so yeah, we did not actually talk about that with Greninja Break.
Right.
You know what? We didn't read through those Pokemon.
We didn't?
No.
Oh.
Oops. My bad. We didn't actually read through what the Greninjas do. I spent the least amount of time on the deck that I thought I might play with. Right. Well, that's winning. Winning right there.
Oh,
okay, are there basic energy in this deck? Or are there none? Does this totally rely on using Sonic Vision to attack for free?
Pretty sure it does.
Oh, cool.
Because these are the only energy cards that I'm seeing.
Level X's are 1 prizers. Okay, that makes sense. Alright. So we've got a 1/1 Spinarak Ariados. We've got 3 Shaman EX. We've got Combi and Vespiquen. Alright. So we've got 4 double colorless, which I'm assuming the point of those is to be able to attack with Vespiquen, since you're planning to use Sonic Vision to attack for free with Yanmega and Yanmega Break. So we've got a Lysander. Oh, Revitalizer. Okay, so this is a card. Oh. Leveling up is not evolving, so it can't be done immediately, even if an evolution skipper like Broken Time Space or Forest of Giant Plants was in play. Okay. Okay. That's very interesting. That is a very interesting difference and nuance about the two mechanics. Alright, Lysander is boss. Revitalizer is a card that I just recently learned thanks to GLC. Put 2 grass Pokemon from your discard pile into your hand. Special charge, love me some special charge. Shuffle 2 special energy cards from your discard pile into your deck. That would be so crazy with Lugia right now. 3 Ultra Ball. 2 Battle Compressor, and I know why Battle Compressor is in here. It's because Vespiquen's attack does more damage for each Pokemon, period, in your discard pile. 2 Judge. Okay. Judge is each player shuffles his or her hand into their deck and draws 4 cards. That's a card that's currently standard legal. And this is the first deck we've seen it in here. So don't let me forget to go through the Pokemon this time.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. It's all my bad. I can't believe we did that. Forest of Giant Plants, we just got so excited about sleeving them up and stuff.
I guess.
We'll go back to it. It's fine. We got time. Forest of Giant Plants is super cool. It is unfortunately banned in GLC. Because it's too powerful.
See,
but
it's
what
so
it does,
cool they had to tell you to stop using it.
Each player's there's only like 5 cards banned in GLC, and Forest of Giant Plants is one of them. Each player's grass Pokemon can evolve during his or her first turn or the turn he or she plays those Pokemon.
I have to change that because I put the other breaks in the other way.
Oh, tisk.
Sorry.
I guess it doesn't matter. It's fine. It's fine.
I don't know. At the time, it made sense for me to put it in that way, so that's...
So essentially, this gives every Pokemon the adaptive evolution ability. Is like a way to think about it.
Right.
Like, adaptive evolution is you can evolve on the first turn in play. So this does it for all grass Pokemon. So you can go boom, 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 and just like what Kyle's saying, if you already have the Yanma, or if you have any one of these, and then you use like Revitalizer and get the other 2, you can go boom, 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 and go all the way up to Yanmega Break from nothing in one turn. So that's super cool. Looking forward to doing that. Professor Sycamore, 4 of them. 2 Level Ball, 4 Versus Seeker. Oh, here's another Ultra Ball. I was wondering why there were only 3.
Yeah.
There's Bursting Balloon, which we said is for Night March.
Sorry, I'm just kind of throwing
No,
these down.
you're
They're not
good.
really
You're
organized
good.
yet.
You're good. I'm not exactly being like the most efficient ever. And then 2N. Only 2N. So this is interesting. I wonder if our deck list will settle into like 2 Iono. Or if we'll keep playing 2. I really thought N was like a 4 of in every deck. Well, I guess we'll find out. And then an AZ, which is actually better than, well, so Penny is kind of a current card that's similar to this. It's limited to basics, but you get to keep all the cards attached. This is any Pokemon,
Right.
but you don't get to keep any cards attached. But for the most part, with this, Penny then can be used to heal like an attacker, and then you start putting it back down again. Whereas this is obviously geared more towards recycling a Pokemon with an ability. Alright.
Oh, excuse me.
So we've gone over all these. I also need water. So we've gone over all these trainer cards. Double color is the only energy in the deck. So what does... Ariados is obviously there just for its ability. So what does that do?
Poisonous Nest. Once during your turn before you attack, you may use this ability. Both active Pokemon, except for grass Pokemon, are now poisoned. So you can use it from the bench.
Okay, cool. And it doesn't affect any of your own Pokemon.
Right.
Unless you happen to be attacking with Shaman. Which I guess is also what the double colorless are there for.
Right.
Potentially to attack with Shaman. That's really not the plan, I realize.
Right.
N was a 4 of in every deck during the Black and White era due to a lack of supporter options and reuse versus Seeker. N is played in lower counts in aggressive decks like this, which fall prey to N. Okay, that makes sense. So, obviously when you've got discard draw 7, that's always going to compete because it's such a powerful effect. And then, versus Seeker lets you say, hey, if I need an N, I'll just versus Seeker it back and then use it. Okay, that's cool. That makes sense. What's really crazy about the combination of Battle Compressor and Versus Seeker is that if you really needed a particular supporter on a turn, and you didn't have it, and you had a Battle Compressor, is you could play Battle Compressor, discard it, and then use Versus Seeker to put it into your hand, and then play it. Yeah. I'm sure people, that's obviously not like the
ideal
plan.
Yeah.
That's not the ideal, but that's definitely a way to do it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool to think about. Alright, so Ariados is there because it can poison.
Right.
Which,
From
hey,
bench.
10 damage is 10 damage.
Right.
And that actually would be huge if, say, you're attacking into a Shaman EX, which has 110, and you're doing 100 plus poison, there's the knockout.
There's the 10, yeah.
So, I'm learning these things. Alright, so we know what Shaman does, we know what Ariados does.
Yep.
Vespiquen, we kind of already talked about it, but it's really there for the bee revenge. And what is that?
This attack does 10 more damage for each Pokemon in your discard pile, so it's a 20 plus.
20 plus.
So it does 20 base and then whatever you've got in your discard.
So in theory, the most you could do would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. You'd be doing 240 damage. That's you would have to have literally everything else in the discard pile.
Right.
But you can see that it has quite a range
potential.
of potential. You really only need to get up to, so like 110, 140, 150, those are big numbers to hit. So I think this is mostly intended to be a late game, like come in and close out, and it's just a single prize. Right. So depending on what you're fighting,
less risk than having an EX.
Well, I guess all of these are single prizers, so I don't know what I'm talking about, except for Shaman, which is what the AZ is for. Get rid of Shaman.
Right.
Okay, cool. So I read Sonic Vision. If you have 4 cards in your hand, ignore all energy costs. Which is cool, and that's obviously Ultra Ball is going to be helpful for that, because you can discard 2, and then you could choose to fail if you don't even need a Pokemon.
Right.
But what does Assault Boom do?
Assault Boom. If your opponent's active Pokemon has a Pokemon tool card attached to it, this attack does 70 more damage.
And notice, this is the first deck we've looked at that, I think this is the first deck we've looked at that doesn't have Floatstone. And that's because
Yeah.
Yanmega has free retreat.
Right.
And
Vespiquen
Vespiquen has free retreat. So that's super cool.
Yeah.
So we've seen that the tool thing, we've seen tools that are important.
Right.
And then what about this one? Barrier Break?
Okay, it does 100 damage. This attack's damage isn't affected by weakness, resistance, or any other effects on your opponent's active Pokemon.
Okay.
So it just does 100 damage.
So that's called, hang on. What do they like to call that type of effect? Where it breaks through everything. Oh, shred. So that's a shred attack. Is what they like to call that. Where you can ignore things like, prevent all effects of attacks from your opponent's grass Pokemon or something like that.
Right.
You can just ignore that. So that's called shred. So you've got a shred option and you've got assault boom.
Right.
And because Sonic Vision stays when you evolve it into a break, you can also use this attack for free as long as you have 4 cards in your hand. So that's the trickiest thing about this one.
Right. Is how do you get
keeping it
4?
So
is it 4?
This one is super cool.
It is exactly 4. Okay.
Kyle, is this deck legal for NAIC 2017 or not? I mean, I'm not saying I'll do any good, but this one seems like a lot of fun. It seems a little more, obviously the 4 cards thing, but it seems a little more straightforward, if you will, than the Greninja one. Yeah, we got so caught up on the Talonflame that we didn't actually read the Greninja line.
Yeah.
We were like, wow, only 7 basics.
This is crazy. Alright, so then we're
going to go back to
Greninja
to actually look at and give the...
Yeah.
There is a Vespiquen deck that did well during NASA, but I'd advise guarding against it since there's an obvious counter. Aw, man. Okay. Ninja Blitz. There we go. Okay. Let's actually give these Pokemon their due diligence. So we talked about Talonflame. We did talk about that. Bubble. Hey, honey, there's like your favorite attack ever. Although it doesn't do any damage.
Oh.
Frogadier. Oh, okay, look at this. So Frogadier lets you cheat Frogadier into play. Search your deck for up to 3 Frogadier and put them onto your bench. Shuffle your deck afterwards.
Okay, so you just have to have 1 on the bench.
You just have to have one Froakie survive, and then you can potentially go up and attack, evolve, and then use this.
Yeah.
So there is a Kirlia right now that has an attack called Mirage Step, which is the same thing. Like, you can search for up to 3 Kirlia, and so that's in Gardevoir right now, which is kind of cool because you can potentially have... Oh, here we go so you don't accidentally mix them.
Oh, sorry, I'm yawning. That card is out really far. Okay. So I can see it.
Supernatural Dance. For each Pokemon in your opponent's discard pile, put 1 damage counter on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. Oh! I feel like I just saw that somewhere. It must be on one of the cards I was looking at for GLC. Got it?
Mostly. Aha!
Yes. So the Mirage Step Kirlia is similar to this, which is cool because you could potentially have like a Ralts that evolves into that Kirlia, and then you can put 3 more Kirlia on the bench, so you could potentially have like 5 copies of the family in play.
Right.
And then you could even... Or a Choreo... Okay, yes. I definitely saw that. It's a Psychic type one, right? It's a widely played tech after Vespiquen won Madison Regionals in the same format. Okay. So sad when they start changing the meta. But yeah, it's cool because then you could potentially rare candy the other Ralts into either Gardevoir or Gardevoir EX, and then you've still got the refinement Kirlia available to do refinement.
Right.
Alright. Oh, there are 2 different Greninja here.
Oh, see, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, I did not either. Okay, so there's 3 of that one.
Okay.
And 1 of this one. So, this one, that there are 3 of, has the attack Shadow Stitching, 40 damage, until the end of your opponent's next turn. Each Pokemon your opponent has in play, in his or her hand or the discard pile, has no abilities. Ability Lock as an attack. That's cool. Moonlight Slash. You may return a water energy from this Pokemon to your hand. If you do, this attack does 20 more damage for a total of 80. So 60 base or 80 optionally. Alright, this Greninja, illustrated by Kyle's absolute favorite 5-band graphics. That's a joke. It has an ability called Water Shuriken. Once during your turn, you may discard a water energy card from your hand. If you do, put 3 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Okay. There's a few cards with similar effects to that right now. One would be the other Inteleon VMAX, not the one that I have, not the one that came in the League Battle decks, but the other one. And also Radiant Blastoise's ability is similar to that, although I think Radiant Blastoise is 2-on-2, not 3-on-1. Okay, and then it has an attack called Mist Slash, 50 damage, and it's Shred.
Nice.
Not affected by any effects. Okay. So then, either of those Greninja can evolve into Greninja Break. And they go up to 170 HP, so they each gain 40 HP and an ability called Giant Water Shuriken. Okay, so we go from Water Shuriken to Giant Water Shuriken. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, you may discard a water energy card from your hand. If you do, put 6 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Wow. So many damage. And if you have this, you can actually do both. Because you can use each ability once. So you can do 6 and then 3. You just need 2 water energy. So is this the one that played... you've got Super Rod to get your energy back, and then I think this one also had Fisherman. Yeah, Fisherman. So you put the 4 energy back into your hand, so that then you can do this. And it's really cool that all of these attack for just a single energy.
Yeah, and that's crazy.
So that helps, even though they're slower, because they have to evolve and they don't have access to Forests of Giant Plants. I'm guessing that rare candy was not legal, or was it? It must not have been.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't in any of these decks. But...
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Black Dragon wouldn't have used it.
Right.
And you can't rare candy from a basic to a break. You have to have, because a break is not a whole Pokemon, it has to have the one underneath of it.
Right.
But in theory here, I guess maybe it's just not worth it. Because... I don't know. Rare candy was legal, but you don't need it because of Frogadier. Okay. Alright. Yeah. Alright. I just want to make sure I'm not crazy. I definitely do not, because I don't play these specific formats. I mean, we didn't even understand how rotation worked until just a few years ago.
Very recently. Nope, that's upside down.
What's up?
Those 2 cards.
Oh. I love you.
I love you.
No, I'm just going to have to get used to it.
I'm not going to change them all, but they all need to be the same.
I don't know what I think of as being more natural.
I feel like if I'm holding it in my hand like this, I have multiple cards in my hand, I'm going to grab it and put it down like that.
I guess that makes sense. I just feel like I'm going to instantly tell my opponent anytime I have a break in my hand, because I'm going to go...
Huh.
Let me just look at this thing here.
This is some really cool art on this card.
I have to turn it sideways because I mean, just
Oh
look
my
at that.
gosh.
Look at that guy. Look at him right there.
Yeah. Oh boy.
At least Pokemon hasn't gotten into double-sided cards like Magic.
Oh
Those
my
are tricky because
gosh.
I'm like, wait, what does the other side say? I don't remember. And then you're like, well, I don't want you to know that I have a double-sided card,
So we're
but
just gonna play this one. Just
uh, oh yeah. All
Oh,
right, good times. So those are super fun.
yes, those will
I'm
be
really
fun to
looking
play with.
forward to playing with some combination of them, and I will figure out. I know that Greninja was still somewhat relevant in the later formats. So between this deck here and the other cards from the World Champ decks, hopefully I can put something together and at least not totally embarrass myself. But I am fully prepared to go winless. So thanks everybody for joining us. Those are the 2016 World Championship decks covered from a very surface level, non expert opinion. Uh, Always check out Kyle on Twitter and everywhere else for like real knowledge. But we hope that you enjoyed hanging out with us, and we are going to go ahead and go to bed. So,
Yes.
as always, play.